our players do battle here. Iwata on the play, looking for that nut draw that makes this Mardu Winota deck so terrifying. And I don't think that quite qualifies. Selfless Savior into Roast Rider with 5 land. Iwata setting that back, finds a draw that looks a lot more impressive.
Oh yeah, just having a bunch of things to do with your mana and good mana is incredible. So even though this is a 5-card hand, Iwata's got to be feeling good about just being able to curve and having that Winota Joiner of Forces in the opening hand.
Meanwhile, on Carson Bell's side, we see the ingredients coming together here. We have Toman Gutterbones into Archfiend Vessel and Village Rites into Call of the Death Dweller as our curve if we want to set that up.
2 copies of Archfiend's Vessel with these Call the Death Dwellers is a way to set up a completely insurmountable battlefield.
Look at this. We can go Priest of Forgotten Gods, play both of the vessels, sacrifice them both to the priest, use Call to get them both back, and make 2 5/5s in the process, on top of everything else that the priest is doing for us that turn.
And that's the draw. That is the reason that you bring Rakdos Sacrifice to a tournament. That is what has carried Carson Bell to the top 8 of this event.
And previously, if you get paired against Team of Reclamation, even that might not be good enough. They might not care about what you're doing there on the battlefield, or they might be able to disrupt that draw in some way. That's not a concern anymore. And if you get paired against another creature deck like this, then this is the absolute perfect start for Carson Bell. And I'm excited to see all of the pieces coming together here.
Oh, and look at this. Yosuke missed a land drop.
Now, crucially, Carson Bell also missing a land drop, so that ideal sequence we set up, maybe not on the docket for this turn, but we can still make a lot happen.
Right, there is just a Fabled Passage, which is something that has plagued these aggressive strategies basically since the start of this standard format, but this card off the top could be the land.
Just a Maya Trident. My Kingdom for a Sulphurous Springs, Emma, but instead we have to settle for Maya Trident this turn, and then the nice thing about this Call of the Death Dweller line is it's not like it's time limited. We can just set that up next turn and be A-okay about it.
Right, Yosuke wasn't exactly excited about having Selfless Savior be the turn 3 play anyway, right?
Exactly. And this is where, ideally, Iwata would be able to set up a kind of curve into Winota to maybe try and overpower this and keep pace, but difficult to do that on 5 cards. And Carson Bell, even though he didn't have the absolute perfect draw here with that missed land drop, he really has everything else going on.
Okay, so to be fair, we are going to see those Archdemon's Vessels come back in just a moment, but Winota could attack next turn.
It absolutely could. And we even get the cheeky attack in with the Maya Trident there. 2 free points, and now Call of the Death Dweller. Oh, we even get the Gutterbones for free. Why not? Oh no, we not just yet, although we can return that with the priest mana after all of this is said and done.
Oh.
But Carson may decide it's not even worth his time activating the priest, right? Just park those 2 5/5s in play, present lethal. Iwata doesn't have that many flyers in their deck.
I'm getting some big Skursnak High Priest vibes here.
Shades of 2011 coming right back. And looking at the sideboard here for both players, we see a lot of one-offs and some versatile tools for Iwata, and a much more lean collection of cards there for Carson Bell. What stands out to you from Bell's side?
So the big thing that you're wanting to do here is basically make sure that you can check that namesake Winota and some of the bigger things that are going to actually help Iwata turtle up here. These are things like Judith is going to be a big of a problem. Basri's Lieutenant, a bit of a problem. You also just want to be a bit more resistant to removal in general, because look at those Bone Crusher Giants that Iwata is throwing into the deck there. This is a situation where Iwata is incentivized to make sure that they can check these copies of Priest of Forgotten Gods and all of these synergy pieces that Bell is bringing back to the battlefield.
Yeah, we see some of those slower synergy pieces like Croxer, Fiend Artisan, making room for those interactive cards like Noxious Grasp and Heartless Act. And then for Iwata's side, we have a more diverse mix of things here. None of them really stand out to me, though, as being especially good against Ragdoll Sacrifice. You don't really expect to be playing against that deck in this format anymore.
Right, this is the kind of situation where a lot of what Yosuke was trying to beat today were those slower Sultai decks, or things that were doing a sort of watered down imitation of what Growth Spiral decks were doing previously. Other decks like this low to the ground Rakdos Sacrifice deck that Carson has brought are just so good at going under what Yosuke is doing.
And Claim the Firstborn, not a card we've seen too much in this tournament. I know a few people said it seems like that's going to be well positioned for week 1 of this standard format, and this is the kind of matchup you really want that in. You can set up some truly disgusting turns with that card here in the right circumstances.
Ooh, here's the curve from Yosuke.
All right, can we piece this together? We see a copy of Village Rites in Carson Bell's hand, and that's a card which you maybe saw 1 or 2 copies of in the previous Ragdoll Sacrifice decks. Carson has a full 4 copies of that card. He knows what he's trying to do. He wants to set up these sequences of you sacrifice my Archfiend's Vessel and then bring it back, and that card just really has become one of the central engine pieces to this deck now that Witch's Oven is off the table.
It's just such a strong engine piece. It digs you towards your other synergy pieces, and you now have cards that you're interested in just having them in the graveyard.
Also, such a perfect way to sacrifice your Dreadhold Butcher and get that dice trigger on demand, so to speak. But look at this. Lazarus Reaver into Judith. That's how we draw this up. That is a great curve for Iwata. Doesn't have the Winota to follow up with, but General Kudo and Basilisk Lieutenant, some nice replacements there for turn 4.
God, and look at this draw that Bell has available. You can Village Rites the Archfiend's Vestal, put Lurrus in your hand, and then have it all rolled up next turn to make a 5/5 with your Lurrus.
And that's an excellent line if we have time to deploy that. Judith threatening to take that time away from Carson Bell. We have another Archfiend's Vessel, a Croxer, the 1 left in the deck, I believe, and Priest of Forgotten Gods. So Priest and Vessel on this turn.
And this really just speaks to the emphasis that Bell is putting on Priest of Forgotten Gods, trying to develop it early. That card is great with this Croxa in hand.
With Iwata drawing a second copy of Judith, is there a consideration to legend rolling your own Judith to get those 2 death triggers and shoot down that priest?
Oh, absolutely. 3 mana Forked Bolt isn't exactly something we're excited to put in our deck, but sometimes it's just what the doctor ordered.
And there goes the priest, and now we get to send in another big attack. So Carson, just now falling below 20 life. So has some time to work with, and Heartless had a nice draw to contain any aggressive start from Iwata. So now here we go. We managed to get that first Archfiend's Vessel where we want it, but we would have to spend 3 mana this turn, getting the Lurrus into our hand to set up that 5/5 on the following turn. Opting just for Croxer instead, holding out Heartless Act.
And this is the phase where Bell is actually kind of adopting more of a controlling posture, saying, I think I can go longer. I have better top decks. I have more of these synergies that I can build towards. It's on Yosuke to actually end the game. And that's why we see Bell just holding up this Heartless Act, not putting Lurrus in hand, not really taking any unnecessary risks for the sake of short-term advantages.
Bonecrusher Giant, an interesting pickup for Iwata, allowing him to contest a future Priest of the Forgotten Gods or Lurrus if that eventually comes down. Here is General Kudo of Dranith, and look at that text, Emma. Not always the most relevant part of that card, but when General Kudo or another human enters the battlefield, you can exile a card from the opponent's graveyard. So we get to nab the first Archfiend's Vessel if we want it, or just the Croxer.
And having the ability to tax the graveyard like this on a card that you were already interested in playing is so strong for Yosuke.
And Carson Bell is going to try and make this House of Cards collapse here, using Heartless Act to take down one of those 2 legends. And then lining up some blocks on the others. Gutterbone's not usually a controlling card, but Carson knows the role that he has to adopt in this game.
Oh, wow. How about Fiend Artisan? That's actually a great top deck here, isn't it?
That's a big one, in every sense of the word.
It just is a 4/4.
2 mana for a 4/4 almost seems below rate nowadays, but you'll take it, for sure. And we even get to use our leftover 3 mana to put Lewis in our hand, set up that Archfiend's Vessel sequence for next turn.
And this is so great if you actually get to start activating this Fiend Artisan. In a deck as synergy-driven as the one that Bell is playing, having this sort of birthing pod effect is incredible.
So maybe this is time for Bazzi's Lieutenant. Iwata working through their options here. We're at the spot of the game now where any time Iwata draws Winota, the game could completely flip on its head. And that's that's the merit of this Winota deck, is that just drawing your namesake card can get you out of these seemingly tough situations.
Right, in a ton of sense, in several respects, Yosuke is just trying to actually maintain the cards that they have on the battlefield, because that is the way that you really just maximize the power of drawing something like Winota off the top of your library.
Meanwhile, Ryuji Murray is up a game over Sean Goddard in their match, and Gabriel Nicholas up a game over Kutaru Ishibashi in that Sultai Rat Mirror. No surprise that David Inglis and Tyler Nightingale still locked in battle in game 1 of theirs, except I am just now hearing from Nick Miller, Inglis takes game 1 against Nightingale, so looking good to continue that undefeated streak.
And that's a matchup that Inglis has already won once.
Oh, I imagine he's won it several times if he's making his way into the top 8 of this tournament.
He and Nightingale played round 6. This is a pride match for them.
He has won the actual literal mirror. Here's Archfiend's Vessel. There's a 5/5. Do you ever stop to reflect, Emma, that there was a point where Archfiend's Vessel was intended to be in standard with Lewis under the old companion rule?
I don't want to think about it, to be honest. It's just healthier.
Raise the Alarm threatening to gum up the ground a little bit, but that 5/5 is... That 5/5 in the air is the scariest thing on this board right now. Threatening to end this game in 2 attacks.
Yosuke has one more draw. And that will be it. If Yosuke can't find something to put this 5/5 away.
Here's the Artisan. Here's a Demon.
Are we going to see the go to 1?
That one's tricky. But if Wada thinks that they need to draw Winota and they need to maximize the potential they can have for her, then maybe that's a line.
It's a rough spot because that even leaves you dead to something like Village Rites.
Absolutely, yeah. So now, I guess do we shoot down the Archfiend's Vessel?
I imagine shooting down the Archfiend's Vessel is one of the best ways to actually maximize the number of damage that you can get across if your plan is to just top deck something like Winota and make as much damage as possible.
The tricky thing for Iwata is not having removal spells that could deal with a demon. So if there was something like a Heartless Act from Iwata's side, that would give them additional outs, and maybe this game could keep playing more at parity. Instead, it seems like it is, Winota or bust. Can we come up with the goods on this turn?
Right, this Raise the Alarm is going to make a couple of 1/1s, which Judith makes 2/1s. Paired and couple that with everything already on the battlefield, that's only 8 damage, right? Bazri's Lieutenant can be 1, but it's just a Plains.
And that's going to do it, I think. We're going to see one of our 2 Ragdoll Sacrifice decks, at the very least, advance to our semifinals in the hands of Carson Bell.
We are just one combat step away from Carson Bell locking up an invite to that Season 2 SCG Tour Online Championship.
We send in the clowns. And that gets the job done. Carson Bell takes the match over Yosuke Iwata right on sacrifice, proving